Yeah. Good afternoon, students. Welcome to the live virtual class. And today we are starting the session for Auditing and Ethics Intermediate Paper 5. We are having total 11 chapters, as you all are aware, and you must have visited BOS Knowledge Portal, right? And you must be aware that what is the skill wise weightage, what is the section wise weightage for your syllabus, and how many, like 11 chapters segregated in another sections, and nature, objective, and scope of chapter 1 is covered in section 1, right? So specific weightage is given for that particular chapter. And before we start, we would just like to intimate you that BOS has come out with Saransh for intermediate auditing subject. I think you all might have visited ICAI website and might have seen the Saransh booklet, which is launched by ICAI. It's available on BOS Knowledge Portal. But the screen is visible? Achal, screen is visible?
Yes, it's visible, but I think there's some network issue. So your voice is breaking.
Okay. Okay, my voice is cracking. Students are also writing. Can we start voice from this side? Ashokji, if you can post to Ajit also, BOS ICI? Yeah.
I'll just be there.
Here, I think you can see on BOS Knowledge Portal on ICA website, we are having our Saransh last mile refresher. And for intermediate, we have uploaded the paper 5 auditing and ethics. I hope you are able to see the screen. And so here we have given about all the 11 chapters. And before we begin,
Now it's visible.
yeah. So basically, you all are aware that our intermediate syllabus is based on engagement and quality control standard. And apart from that, we are having our bank audit. So it's still voice is cracking, Achal?
Yes, I think it's the network issue, but it's manageable. No worries. Huh?
Okay.
Messaging is there. No worries.
So we have released the Saransh booklet for your ease. And today we are commencing our chapter Nature, Objective and Scope of Audit, right? So we are only having total 11 of the chapters, and the class which is being commenced for today's session is our renowned faculty. You all are he is well known for you, CA Achal Jain. He is a chartered accountant from the ICAI and BCom honors from University of Delhi. He is currently into practice with specialization in assurance and advisory services. He has also worked with Big Fours, and he's having more than 17 years of post-qualification experience in audit, accounting, and financial reporting. Achal has managed statutory audit engagement for several clients with presence in India and overseas, right? So he's well versed with the requirements under SA, ISA, Ind AS, IFRS, US GAAP, and Indian GAAP. So I can tell you that he is the one who is having significant experience in assisting clients across industry sectors, manufacturing, real estate, power, construction, service, software, media, trading. So he is having so much of experience that you can definitely discuss the practical techniques of auditing subject like topic, which is nature, objective, and scope of audit, he can interlink it with the practical situations also. And it will be interesting with it will be interesting for you also. So before we start, I would request Achal sir to commence with the overview of auditing and how to study, some tips he can provide for, and then start with nature, objective, and scope of audit. At the end of the session, for last 15 minutes, BOS will again be with you. If you have any specific query regarding BOS or examination pattern, you can directly connect with us for the same. Excuse me. So, not taking much of the time. Stop. Not taking much of the time. Yeah. We are directly starting the session. Of course, students, you are muted and you cannot switch on your camera. But in between, we will give you the time where you can ask your query from the Achal sir. And at the end, we will take up our BOS related queries, right? And you can ask from us. So over to you, Achal.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much, Karuna ma'am, and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this discussion on audit. So I understand that you've already got the perspective around your syllabus as to what all things are required to be covered, and we'll now move on to this discussion on the audit. So, in fact, again, as regards today's subject, whether you call it as chapter 1, nature, objective, and scope of audit, I would largely say it's the beginning of the audit, or it's all about an overview. In fact, in this chapter, you'll be getting a feeler of what audit is all about, what all things are required to be covered therein, and what is the understanding of audit. Okay, so without really getting started with what is there in the chapter, let's try to spend some time and try to understand as to what audit is all about. Okay, so now, if let's suppose you are required to check something, okay, let's suppose you have done some activity and there's another person who has been asked to check whether this activity has been done in an appropriate manner or not. Yeah, so this is what you call as audit, as simple as that. Similarly, if let's suppose there's some examination, okay, you all go through that examination, you are required to write papers, exams. Yeah, so somebody is reviewing that work. So when you go appear for the examination, whatever answers you are writing, so there is another person who is reviewing whether that's been done in an appropriate manner or not. So that is again a sort of review, that is again a sort of audit, you can say, as to whether that has been done in an appropriate manner or not. Though it's more of an examination, but largely, if you talk about audit, if you want to understand about audit very simply means checking whether something has been done in the manner in which it was required to be done. Generally, when you talk about audit, okay, in fact, most of our discussion in relation to your course curriculum will be centered around the financial statements of the company. Okay, and I hope everyone understands the financial statements. Yeah, quickly, if you can confirm, everyone, do you understand the financial statements of a company? What is the meaning of financial statements? What all things are included therein? Yeah. So, can you tell me what all things are covered in the financial statements? If you are aware of the components of the financial statements, quickly. Yes, balance sheet, very good. So that's what Nandini says. Rishabh says balance sheet, of course. P&L, very good. Meda is saying P&L. Yeah. And similarly, we can say cash flow. Similarly, we can say notes to accounts. Yeah, all of these things are what? They are nothing but the financial statements. Now, as regards the financial statements of an entity, whether that's a company or any other organization, what is there at the back end means when you actually get onto the financial statements of a company, how does this flow really works? Can we get onto the financial statements at the beginning? The answer is no. First of all, where do you start? You'll start with the accounting entry. Yes or no? Then you'll get on to the ledgers. Then you will get on to the trial balance. Yeah. So all of these things are what? They are nothing but a flow. Flow in terms of accounting, flow in terms of writing the books of accounts, and thereby reaching the set of financial statements. Correct? Yeah. So that's the understanding that we have. So in a way, we can also say that it's all about financial reporting, which includes all of these aspects. Books of accounts, which includes trial balance, ledgers, accounting entries, financial statements. Correct? Now, whose responsibility is this? When we talk about books of accounts, financial statements, trial balance, so who has the responsibility in terms of their preparation? Great. Bunty says it's the management. Kiran says it's accountant. Yeah. So when you talk about managers, management, accountant, basically you are talking about the entity. So you are saying that it's the entity who is responsible for that. Yes or no? Means entity will be preparing that. Entity will be presenting that. Correct? Now, when you move on to the preparation, so we understand it's the responsibility of the management. But in terms of preparation of the financial statements, what all ingredients are required? So let's try to understand that. So when you are getting into this financial statements, so some of the ingredients will be required or not? Yeah. So one ingredient we can say happens to be the accounting standards, or you can say the accounting principles. So that is going to be one. So how do you prepare the financial statements? You will use that. You'll use the accounting principles. Gunjan says proper amounts, no missing entries. Correct. So in a way, we can say accounting principles are required to be used. Yes or no? Okay. Other than the accounting principles, can you think of something else which will also be required for preparation of the financial statements? Something that comes to your mind? What all things will be required? Yeah, so accounting standards, very good. So Rajveer says accounting standards, correct. But other than accounting standards, Panti says essay. No, essay is not required for accounting. Essay is required for audit, and we'll come to that. So other than accounting principles, accounting standards, accounting policies are all based on accounting standards. What all things will be required? Can we say we also need to look at the regulatory requirements? Can we not say that we also need to look at the laws and regulations which are applicable to the entity? Yes or no? Yeah. So Kishan says yes, laws are required to be looked at. Yeah. Bunty says compliance with various laws. Yeah. Okay. So that means we have two things to be looked at. Rashmi says Companies Act is also required. Correct. So that is nothing but a law. Yeah. Similarly, there could be various legal requirements. Income tax may have to be looked at. Maybe FEMA laws and maybe FEMA is required to be looked at. Okay. Or any other law which is applicable to the company is required to be looked at. Why? Because this can have some impact on their financial reporting requirements. Yes or no? Yeah. So, which means as far as financial statements are concerned, two things will always be looked at by the management. What are those? Accounting standards and laws and regulations. So broadly, we can say this. Accounting standards, whether that is Indian GAAP or Ind AS or any other GAAP, we are not getting into that right now. Okay. Now, let's suppose if you were to check, if let's suppose you are engaged, let's suppose Shreya is engaged, Rashmi is engaged, Preetham is engaged. Engaged for what? For checking whether those financial statements have been prepared in an appropriate manner or not. So, what will you do? Can you tell me? Everyone, let's suppose if you were engaged to check whether the financial statements have been prepared in an appropriate manner or not. So, what is it that will come to your mind? What is it that you will want to look at? So, Bunty says auditing will look at. So, of course, that's audit only. Okay, so when you have been engaged, when you have been hired, so what is it that you are going to look at? Can you tell me quickly? Everyone. Yeah, so great. So some of you are saying true and fair. Medha says financial statements. Sumit says we'll check the journal entries or the books of accounts. Correct. See, in most of the cases, some of the things which come to your mind happens to be what? Journal entries, okay, accounting entries, ledgers, samples. But I'm just going beyond that. I'm just looking at the broader level. If let's suppose somebody is required to check the financial statements, so what is it that he will want to look at? He will just want to check whether the way financial statements were required to be prepared, whether those have been prepared in the same manner or not. As simple as that. Yes or no? Yes or no? Tell me quickly. Yeah. And for doing this, as we discussed, what are the ingredients which the management should have used? Accounting standards, accounting principles, various laws and regulations. So that means, as an auditor, if I am the auditor who is required to check, so I need to understand that accounting principle. Only then I will be able to check. Yes or no? I'll have to understand the laws and regulations. Only then I'll be able to check. Yes or no? Tell me. Yes or no? So if you, let's suppose, don't understand the accounting principles, if let's suppose some of the requirements of the Companies Act say what is the format of the financial statements, if let's suppose you don't have the understanding and you are asked to check whether it is correct or not, do you think you will be able to check that? Tell me quickly. Do you think you will be able to check that? Rishabh says no. Yeah. Rashmi says no. Yeah. So that's where we need to understand that what is audit? Audit simply means making sure what was required to be done has been done in an appropriate manner or not. Now, what is that appropriate manner? That again needs to be understood by the auditor. Understood? Yeah. Now, for checking this, or you can say for checking the set of financial statements, for checking the books of accounts, of course, as an auditor, what will you need? You will need understanding of accounting principles, understanding of laws and regulations which are applicable to the company. Over and above that, there is a set of auditing standards which have been laid down. Now, what do you mean by auditing standards? Similar to what you see in case of accounting, some standardized norms have been given. Means if the accounting has to be done in a particular manner, that is what you get to see in the accounting standard. Or where do you get to see? That is available in the accounting standards. Similarly, for all the auditors to make sure that they are using a consistent approach, or the methodology which should have been followed in respect of audit, some standards have been laid down. You can say some guidances have been provided in a simple manner. Okay, some guidances have been provided. And those guidances, because they are mandatory, that's why they have been standardized. They have been standardized. And every auditor is required to follow those guidances. And that is what you call as auditing standards. Understood? Yeah. So there are two things that we have just tried to discuss. One, what is this audit all about? Or in a very, very simple manner, what is the meaning of audit? Because many a times you may be thinking, so there's a very technical meaning of audit. We don't understand the meaning of auditor. We don't understand what audit is all about. We don't understand what is the meaning of auditing standards, what all auditing standards are all about. So we have just tried to understand the perspective around that as to, what is audit, what auditing standards are all about, what are these things which are available, which we need to look at. Understood? Everyone got some clarity, got some overview on this? Any questions, any doubts if you have? Tell me quickly. Any questions, any doubts so far? Yeah, so everyone clear? Now, one more thing. Please remember that audit doesn't mean audit of financial statements always. Audit could be in relation to anything. For example, if an activity has been performed and that is required to be checked, there can be an audit for that. Yeah, Risham mentioned a company may have some inventory stock and the company wants to get it checked. So, what will you call it as? That is again audit. But that audit will be specific to that particular activity, that particular area, that particular item. Okay. So, every time when we talk about audit, it doesn't necessarily mean that it will be an audit of financial statements. It could be related to anything. And that is where you need to, first of all, understand what is required to be checked. Okay. So every time, whenever this term audit comes up, you should just simply understand audit doesn't mean a very technical meaning. Audit very simply means that you need to go and check something. Okay. You need to go verify something. You need to go examine something. Yeah. Rishabh is saying, for example, sir, college's grant audit is conducted. Yes, that's correct. That is also an audit. Priyanka is saying, sir, do we check all the transactions and informations while doing audit? Not necessarily. And we'll come to this. We'll discuss about this. Okay. Omkar is saying, sir, what is independent examination? So, of course, we'll talk about it. So, now what I'll do is I'll now move further and I'll just try to touch upon the technical definition of audit. Okay. So it doesn't mean that whatever we have discussed so far is not the meaning of audit. Audit will have the same meaning that we have discussed. But in the context of audit of financial statements, now please remember the meaning of audit, the way it's been given, we are just trying to understand that. Okay. And therein we'll just try to answer all of these questions that we have been asking. So let's try to understand that. Okay. Now, first of all, if let's suppose you are writing an exam, okay, I'll just take an example with which you can just very easily correlate. Let's suppose you are writing an exam, okay, and let's suppose I am the examiner or I am going to be checking your answer sheets. Yeah, and I am related to you. Let's suppose I am your relative. Sheets in a manner which is required to be done means, will that be bias free? Do you think will that be possible for me? Tell me, do you think? The answer is no. Correct? So that's where this bias creep in. Yeah. So why does this bias creep in? Because I am related to you. So if I am related to you, so there are chances that even if there are some errors, I may ignore that. Even if you, let's suppose, don't deserve full marks, I may want to award you full marks. Yes or no? Though of course you'll deserve, but that's an example. Huh? So don't think it will always work that way. Huh? Okay. Now same goes with the audit. Now audit is all about checking. Yes or no? Audit is all about checking something. So that's where it needs to be ensured that whoever will check that person should not be related to the entity who has prepared the financial statements. Yes or no? If let's suppose A Limited has prepared the financial statements, and let's suppose I am the auditor who has been appointed for financial statements checking, means audit of financial statements. And if I am related to A Limited, let's suppose I have got shares of A Limited, or I know directors of A Limited, okay, they are related to me. So do you think I'll be able to check the financial statements in a manner which is bias free? Do you think it will be possible? Do you think it will be possible? The answer is no. So that's why what is important? That the auditor should be independent. Now, what do you mean by independent? Independent means he should make sure that he is free from any sort of bias. Understood? He should not be able to influence, he should not be getting influenced by the auditee. Auditee means the entity which is getting audited. Clear on the meaning of independence, on the independent examination. Clear? Yeah. So this is a very, very important aspect of audit. And what is that? Independence. If the independence is not there, then there is no audit effectively. Yeah. Or there will always be a question mark. There will always be a question mark. Okay. Priyanka is asking, independence means not subordinate to the direction of others. Yes, of course. Yes, of course. Means you should be free from any sort of influence. Of course, bias, but at the same time, influence should not be there. At the same time, you should also not be able to influence that. Okay? Clear? Yeah? Now, let's try to understand the meaning of audit. Okay, or you can say this technical meaning of audit, so-called technical meaning. Audit is an independent examination, means examination of financial information. Independent means it's been done by a person or an entity who is independent. Okay, so it's an independent examination of financial information of any entity. Now that entity may be making profits or not, whatever be the size of that entity, whatever is the legal form of that entity, it doesn't matter. Whatever entity is that. When such an examination is conducted with a view to expressing an opinion. Now, what do you mean by when such an examination is conducted with a view to express an opinion? So it means that once this work will be completed, once this audit will be completed, once this examination, once this checking will be completed, so what do you do? What do you do? You will give your report. Yeah. So let's suppose if your mark sheets, if let's suppose your answer sheets are checked. So in return, what do you get? Report card? The report card or not? Do you get that? Yes or no? You get the result or the report card. So same goes with the audit. So auditor is also required to issue a report. And in that report, what is it that the auditor will write? Auditor will write whether everything was all right or not. Whether everything was all right or not means whether the financial statements have been prepared in an appropriate manner or not. That is what you call as expressing an opinion, means outcome in the form of the report of the auditor. Clear? Everyone clear on this? Yes, tell me quickly. Any questions? Abhishek is asking assurance. So you can say audit is a type of assurance, but around assurance we'll have a detailed discussion as we move forward. Okay. For the time being, you can say audit is a type of assurance only. Assurance is a larger term. Audit is a part of that. Okay. Yeah. Everyone clear? Clear on this? All right, great. So now, as around the audit, we have discussed, this entity could be anything, or this any area may have to be required to be audited. It could be related to financial statements. It could be related to any other area which is there in the financial statements. Okay, which is not necessarily restricted to any particular item. Now, let's try to look at some of the things which the auditor may want to look at. Okay. Now, when it comes to the financial statements, let's suppose we are talking about financial statements. In a financial statements, there are a lot of things which will flow. One will be the books of accounts, means the accounting entries. Then the accounting entries should have been passed based on the supporting documents. Yes or no? Now, what could be a supporting document? Can you tell me? Voucher could be there. Invoice could be there. Yes or no? Salary slip could be there. Salary slip to record the employee cost. Invoices to record the purchases or the sales or various expenses or income. Very good. So Akarshita says bank records. Yes. So bank statements, they are also required to record what? All the receipts, all the payments which have been made. Medha says debit and credit notes. Yes. So if any debit or credit note has been issued, so that is also a document. So each and every document of the entity which is required to be captured therein. Yeah. So that is also one of the things which the auditor may want to look at. But does it mean that everything will be looked at? The answer is no. So we'll come to that point also. So the auditor will check accounting entries, supporting documents, yeah, whether anything has been omitted, means any entry got missed out, anything is clear or not, there's something unambiguous or ambiguous, yeah, whether the financial statements are prepared in accordance with accounting standards, means PPE should be shown at the appropriate place. Cash and bank should be shown at the appropriate place. Revenue should be shown at the appropriate place in the P&L. Yes or no? Yes or no? So all of these things are required to be looked at. Yeah. Now, coming to this audit in relation to an entity. So let's try to understand about the audit approach. Okay. Now, if let's suppose you were to go and audit an entity. Yeah. So can you name an entity? Any entity that you can name? Name any entity. Yeah? Great. So Medha says Reliance, TCS. All right. So any entity we can pick up. Huh? Let's suppose we pick up ABC Limited. Now, whenever an audit of this entity will be performed, so we discussed books of accounts will have to be checked, financial statements will have to be checked. So therefore, one aspect we talked about is accounting. One aspect we talked about is laws and regulations applicable. Okay. Now, other than that, there are various other aspects. Let's try to understand those aspects. Okay. And let's also try to understand as to what is the relevance of all of these things. Now, in relation to various areas which could be there in the entity. Say, for example, if let's suppose entity is in the business of manufacturing of some goods, if let's suppose entity is in the business of telecom, if let's suppose there is a real estate company, if let's suppose there's a company which is into retail business, okay, and you are going and wanting to check something, and you want to check the financial statements, you want to check the books of accounts. Now tell me one thing, for doing all of these things, for checking all of these aspects, how do you go and start the audit? Anyone who may have dealt with this? Quickly, over to you. Anyone who may have gone and dealt with this? Prinka, I'll come to all of these points. Huh? Anyone who may have gone and dealt with this? Tell me quickly. Quickly, huh? Tell me. So how do you go and deal with that? Great. So Likita says you can start checking the invoices. Okay. Kiran says, yes, I have done this. Now tell me one thing. If let's suppose you go and start the audit, okay, and you pick up the financial statements. Let's suppose I am the auditor, I'll pick up the financial statements, I'll start checking the financial statements. Or I'll pick up the trial balance, I'll start checking the trial balance. Do you think you will be able to understand everything through the reading of the financial statements or through the reading of the trial balance? What do you think? The answer is no. Why? Can you tell me why you will not be able to understand everything? Yes, over to you quickly. Can you tell me? Likita says because the information which is available in the financial statements is very limited. Now, for a company, for an auditor to go and check whether they are into retail, whether they are into real estate, what do you need? You need an understanding of their sales. Yes or no? If let's suppose I tell you that is a real estate company, but actually that is into retail, how will you go and check that? Through by checking their sales contracts. Yes or no? Yeah. Similarly, by checking their purchase, by checking their process. Yeah. So that means you need to go and look at the activities which they are doing. Because the financial statements will give you very, very limited information. Correct? So, therefore, as an auditor, for you to go and check something, what do you need at the first place? You need a complete clarity. And that is what we discussed. Huh? You need a complete clarity. If you don't have the complete clarity, so what will happen? You may miss out on some of the things. Yes or no? You may miss out on some of the things. So that's why every time when you go and check something, you need to understand what? That each and every area, each and every department of the organization is what you need to understand. You need to familiar with that. And how will you get to know about it? Through understanding of the organization. Yeah, through understanding of their business. Only when you go and understand their business, you will have a clarity. Because as an auditor, what is going to be your role? To ask questions. Yeah, to look for everything. But how can you go and check something? How will you ask questions? Only when you have the clarity. And the clarity can be obtained by understanding the organization, by understanding the industry. And how do you understand the organization? Can you tell me? How do you go and understand the organization? Tell me quickly. How do you go? Meda says by asking questions. Of course, yes. But questions around what? Questions around various processes. Their production department, their finance department, their sales department, their marketing department, their payroll department, each and every process. As an auditor, you need to go and check. Now, you may have a question, but sir, if let's suppose I am the only auditor, or if let's suppose there's a team of two auditors, yeah, so how will they manage so much work? So that will again depend on the size of the company. Yeah, depending on the size of the entity, the audit team will be maybe smaller or larger. Yeah. So you should not be thinking, sir, how can we go and check everything? For example, if we talk about TCS, so in case of TCS, you will have a team of 50 persons. Okay. For a company which is very small, you will have a team of say 3 to 4 persons. Understood? Understood? Clear on this? Yeah. Now, Kishan is asking, sir, we have to check everything. If needed, we have to ask from external members too. Yes, you will have to ask a lot of questions. So now that information which you need to obtain, that information that you want for your understanding may come from various sources. And those sources could be internal to the company, external to the company. There could be hundreds of sources. Yeah. But of course, I think one question which is there in your mind is, do we need to check everything? No, you don't need to check everything. And I'll come to that point slightly later. Okay. Yeah. But one point is very, very important, that you need to understand the organization in its entirety. Because if you don't do that, if you don't get the clarity around that, then you will miss out. You will miss out on your procedures. You will miss out on some of the important things. Okay, clear? Everyone clear? Now, I think you also want to understand as to what is the role of behavioral science. Now, tell me one thing. When you go and perform an audit, so there will be a team of auditors, correct? Let's suppose there's a team of 5 persons who will audit the financial statements. So that is what you call as audit team. Can you just go and audit the financial statements of a company without interaction with the management, without interaction with the entity, without interaction with the client personnel? The answer is no. The answer is no. Yeah. So this people management, this aspect becomes very, very important for the auditor. Why? Because auditor has to manage, first of all, his own team of 4 to 5 persons. Yes or no? Plus, he has also got a role as around what? Interactions with the management. He needs to manage those people also, to get the information, to deal with them, to discuss a lot of points. Yeah. So this skill set around the people management is a very, very important function. You can say a very, very important role for the auditor. Clear? Everyone clear on this? Yeah. Any questions? Any doubts? Just give me a minute. Huh? Yeah, clear? All right. So now moving further. Okay, so this is again, you can say briefly all about audit. Now, moving further on to the audit. So let's try to understand a bit deeper into this audit. Okay. Now, there is an auditing standard SA 200, which talks about objectives, okay, conduct of audit. Now, what are the objectives of the audit? And forget about what is written on the screen. Can you tell me, if you were required to audit, what can you think of as to what can be an objective of an audit? What all objectives do you think could be there? Just try to think about it logically. Huh? What do you think, if let's suppose something is required to be audited, what could be an objective which could be included there? Likita says to determine the authenticity. Okay. Uh, then I think Ayush says to ensure the errors are not there. Akarshita says to detect any fraud, potential misstatement. All right. Then I can see a lot of responses. Huh? Okay. So Kiran says checking accuracy. Bunty says whether the financial statements reflect true and fair view. Medha says to communicate your opinion properly about the company. Great. Yes. Very good. So Yamini is saying accuracy and valuation. Yes. Sumit is saying to check there's no fraud or clerical error. Tanu says it's free from bias. All right, great. So I can understand that you have thought upon a lot of reasons, okay, or a lot of objectives because of which this audit may have to be performed. Now, this auditing standard says that the audit is performed to obtain reasonable assurance. Okay, now what is reasonable assurance? I'll come to that. In a very simple terms, you can say to obtain comfort about whether the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. Okay, so let's try to understand only this much part. Then I'll move on to the remaining part. Now, what do you mean by reasonable assurance? Assurance means to get a comfort that financial statements are free from Misstatement. Now, what is the meaning of misstatement? Misstatement, in a very simple terms, you can say is a mistake. Now, that mistake could be intentional. That's why it could be a fraud, or unintentional. So that's why it could be an error. Okay. But at the same time, auditor is required to ensure that the financial statements are free from material misstatement. Material means something which is significant, means which is going to have a significant impact on the financial statements. So, which means all the errors are not required to be ensured in an audit process. Yes or no? So, in a way, can we not say that auditor is not supposed to check each and every error, or financial statements are free from each and every error? Why? Because there could be a lot of errors which are very smaller in size. Yes or no? Yes or no? Now, let's think about a company. So I think you gave me examples of Reliance, TCS, Aditya Birla. Great. Let's think about these companies. How many transactions do you think will occur in these companies on a daily basis? What do you think? How many transactions will take place? Many means what? On a daily basis, these companies will be having hundreds of transactions. Hundreds of transactions, thousands of transactions could be there. Yeah. So let's talk about year, because financial statements will be prepared for one financial year. So in a financial year, thousands of transactions will be taking place. Yeah. People is saying lakhs of transactions. Yes, of course. Lakhs of transactions will be there. So let's suppose a team of 70 persons. I'm taking a larger team. Let's suppose a team of 70 persons is deputed to audit such a large company. Do you think they will be able to check those lakhs of transactions? Do you think it's practically possible? Tell me, is it practically possible? Let's suppose I double this size. Let's suppose there's a team of 150 persons. Still, do you think 150 persons will be able to check lakhs of transactions? The answer is no. Kishan says maybe with the help of AI. How can you check with the help of AI also? Because there are going to be lakhs of supporting documents. Yes or no? Yes or no? Yeah. So even AI will not serve the purpose in terms of checking everything. Or if you do that through AI, at least you are relying on somebody, okay, which is the technology. So the technology is being followed by the companies also. Yes or no? So now there are two problems. First problem is what? Volume is too high. Yeah. Because of which each and everything cannot be checked. Second is, even if you want to do that, there could still be an error, because if you go and check lakhs of transactions, then there is a possibility that you may commit an error as an auditor. Yes or no? Tell me, yes or no? Yeah. So that's why, what is it that the auditor is required to do? Auditor is not required to give absolute assurance. What do you mean by absolute assurance? 100% checking. Auditor is only required to give reasonable assurance. What does it mean? Means auditor will check areas in a limited manner, on a sample basis. Auditor will not check everything. Auditor will not do 100% testing. Okay. So when it comes to the financial statements, what is the objective of the audit? To give reasonable assurance. What do you mean by reasonable assurance? Means checking will be done. High level of checking will be done. But that high level will not be 100%. And by checking this, what is it that the auditor wants to achieve? Auditor wants to achieve that the financial statements are not free from all the errors. Of course, if that is done, that is not a problem. That is good. But that is not the expectation. That is not the objective. That is not the approach. Approach is what? That any significant errors, significant misstatements should not be there. Okay, clear on this? Clear on this? Any questions so far? Sumit says, so can we say that reasonable assurance means sample based checking? Yes. Archana is clear. What about others? Over to you. Kishan is clear? Great. Okay. So good. Now moving further. Okay. So we discussed first two sentences, in fact. Now, if the auditor will do this, means ensure financial statements are free from material misstatement. So auditor will obtain reasonable assurance. So by doing that, what will happen? Auditor will be able to give his report. And that is why we say he will be able to express an opinion. Okay. In his opinion, what is it that the auditor will express? That the financial statements provide true and fair view. Okay. True and fair view. So that is going to be there in the report of the auditor. Okay. And for doing this, what is it that the auditor will do? Auditor will use essays. Auditor will use essays. What are essays? Auditing standards. Auditing standards. Okay. So some of these points that we discussed, yeah, we can just quickly summarize. Obtain reasonable assurance. Yeah. Obtain reasonable assurance to ensure that the financial statements are free from material misstatement. Yeah. Thereby provide a report. Report for what? Opinion. Yeah. So that is nothing but a communication, or you can say a reporting on the part of the auditor. Yeah. So this is something that we say is the objective of audit of financial statements. Clear? Everyone clear? Omkar says communication with whom? Okay. And Nick also. Yes, I'll come to your queries. See, communication with the entity means with the management or with the board of directors. Yeah. So that is going to be the communication. So this report will go out to the members of the company in case of audit of financial statements, or depending on the scope. Means if the scope includes reporting to be given to board of directors, so report will go to board of directors. So that will again depend on the scope which is there. Yeah. Vipul is asking, sir, reasonable basis having any definition? How much is reasonable? So this appears to be quite subjective. Yes, you are absolutely right. This is quite subjective. Okay. So there is no defined criteria, or I cannot give you any rule. Why? Because no rule has been set up. Every time auditor will have to evaluate that. And what will become the basis for this evaluation? Auditor will have to go understand the company, its size, its transactions, nature of its transactions, volume of the transactions. Okay. Depending upon which, auditor will apply his skill set. Auditor will apply his or knowledge. Okay. To get on to this reasonable basis. Okay. Ayush says, sir, can we say audit provides transparency to the companies? We can say audit provides transparency in respect of the financial statements, or you can say more comfort. Okay, in a way. For example, let's suppose a company has prepared the financial statements. Okay, let's suppose Ayush, you are a third party. Okay, let's suppose you are a banker and the company wants a loan from you. Let's suppose you are the banker, company wants a loan from you. And the company has produced a set of financial statements to you, which is unaudited. Let's suppose this is A Limited. And there is another company, B Limited. This company has produced a set of financial statements which is audited. Okay. Which one do you think will give you more comfort? The one which is unaudited or audited? Tell me, over which one Kishan says audited. Why audited? Why audited? Because in case of audited, you would have a comfort. Comfort around what? That somebody has reviewed this, somebody has checked this, and everything appears to be okay there. Yes or no? Yes or no? Yeah. So that is what you will look at. Clear? Yeah. Clear on this? So that is what you can say audit provides. So the comfort level of the users of the financial statements, stakeholders. Now, whether that stakeholder user happens to be the management or maybe a third party, that can vary. Okay. Yeah. So that additional comfort is provided. So we are not saying that the management will do something wrong, but we don't know. They might be doing something wrong intentionally, or maybe unintentionally there are errors. Yeah. So that's why if somebody would have checked, so the comfort level will increase. Yeah. Okay. So that's the thing which you can say gets achieved through the audited set, which is not there in case of unaudited set. Clear? Clear? All right. Any more questions before we move further? Any questions? Any doubts? If you have, please let me know. Yes, over to you. Any questions? Any doubts? Okay, Vipul is asking, sir, audit in itself is incomplete because it cannot detect sophisticated fraud. So you should not say that audit in itself is incomplete. You can always say that audit has some inherent limitations. Okay, but within its limitations, audit is definitely complete. Okay, to say it's incomplete will be an inappropriate term. Yeah, because again, audit is a detailed process through which one will always get onto a high level of assurance. Remember, it's not 100% assurance, but at the same time, it's high level of assurance. 100% cannot be provided. And in fact, we only discussed. Yeah. Do you agree that 100% testing is not possible? Or even if you start doing 100% testing, you will end up making errors. Yes or no? Yeah. So that's why you need to come up with a strategy, a mechanism through which you reach a high level of assurance. Absolute assurance is not possible. Okay. Clear, people, on this? Clear? Shreya is asking, sir, is it compulsory for all entities to conduct audit? No. For the companies, it is mandatory. For non-corporates, it depends. That is again something you'll cover as you move further. Okay. For companies, it is mandatory. Sumit is asking, sir, what happened if the auditor do audit in financial statements and later on management determine there are some errors? Now, please understand, whose responsibility was the preparation of financial statements? Whose responsibility was that? Tell me, whose responsibility was that? Management? Yes or no? So if let's suppose management has prepared something, means the management has finalized. Yes or no? Management has finalized that. Correct? Now, after that, they have hired somebody, an auditor, to check that. They have hired somebody, auditor, to check that. Correct? Now, in this case, later on, if there are some errors which are observed, so will that be because of audit or will that be because of the preparation? Tell me. Should we say that these errors have come now because there was no proper audit? The answer is, of course, it can be there. But preparation was a problem to begin with. Yes or no? So eventually, who will be responsible for that? Management. Yeah. Auditor can also be held responsible if he has not performed his procedures in an appropriate manner. But to say that is that because of audit, the answer is no. That is not necessarily because of audit. That is because of the proportion. Yeah. So there were some errors over there, which may not have been detected by auditor. And that is what we are discussing. Huh? So there can always be some errors even after audit. Even after audit, there could be some errors. Yes or no? That is what we have already discussed. Correct? Clear on this? Yeah? Everyone clear? Any questions? Kiran is asking, sir, then how can it be said that it's true and fair if there is no 100% checking? See, that's why it's called as true and fair. It's not called as true and correct. This fair word is used because there is no 100% checking. Understood? So the wording has been changed accordingly. Yeah? Then I think somebody is asking to report on the financial statements means. So this checking of the financial statements is being done. So that's why reporting is done on what? Financial statements. Clear? When the financial statements are audited, that's where the report is going. So report is going on what? Tell me. Report is going on what? Financial statements only. Yes or no? Clear? Clear on this? Yeah? All right. So then I think Parth is asking, sir, what is the meaning of material misstatement? Material misstatement means misstatement which is significant, okay, which is of high value, for example, or which is very important for the users of the financial statements. So material wording stand for significant, okay, and misstatement stands for a mistake. Now that mistake could be an error. Error means something which is unintentionally done, or it may stand for fraud, means a fraudulent thing, means something which has been done intentionally. Okay, so it stands for both fraud and error. Clear on this? Yeah. Likita is asking, sir, can there be absolute audit in small size entities? See, if the entity will want to get it done, they can get it done. Yeah. But as far as statutory audit is concerned, you can say something which is mandated by the Companies Act in respect of companies, which is also termed as statutory audit. Therein, 100% is not done. Okay. And practically, it is not done. Yeah. So I can understand your thought process, your queries. So practically, that is not done. Okay. Practically, this is how the scope will always remain. Clear on this? Yeah. So the scope will always be about the reasonable assurance and not the absolute assurance. Okay. Clear? Yeah. Now, let's move further. So now, as around the audit, we have discussed as to what does it include. So we have discussed it may include anything in relation to the entity. Yeah. So it will cover all aspects of entity, all the functions of the entity, all the areas which are included therein. So each and everything. Yeah. Which is in relation to the financial information, means the financial statements, books of accounts, any component of the financial statements, including the disclosure. So when we talk about the financial statements, we are not only talking about the balance sheet or the P&L. We are talking about financial statements as a whole. Okay. Yeah. So each and every aspect of the financial information is included therein. Okay. Each and every aspect is included therein. Now comes another very important aspect. I think something which we have been looking at and repeatedly which you have been asking me. The scope of audit. What is not included within the scope of audit? Okay. Yeah. So I think this is one area which will help you get more clarity around the audit as to what is not required to be done. Now, please remember, when an audit is being done, so you should not be thinking that some official investigation is going. Yes or no? Yeah. Why? Because there is a limited scope in the audit. Investigation, you can say, is something which is quite wide in terms of scope. Okay, that is quite wide. But audit is a narrowed down scope. It is not as wide as investigation. Now, as regards the documents, when you go and check something, let's suppose if you go and check, for example, if you, let's suppose, go and check sales, if you go and check purchase, can you tell me what is the supporting document you will want to check? For checking purchases, what all supporting documents can you look at? What all supporting documents you think you will look at? Tell me quickly. Great. So Mohan says invoice, Rishabh says invoice, Dhanush says ITC report. Okay. Divya says purchase invoices. Yeah. Vipul is saying we'll go look at the GST portal in terms of the purchases. Correct? Yeah. Now, please remember that all of these documents that you will check, will you also want to check their authenticity? The answer is no. Why? Because all of those invoices which would be available, you will assume that these are genuine. Will you go on to check each and every invoice whether this invoice is genuine or not? No. You will presume that if a document is produced to you, then it is genuine. Yeah. You will not question each and every document which is available to you. Let's suppose purchase order is given to you, purchase invoice is given to you. If let's suppose you go GST portal, you check the input credit, you check the invoices which are uploaded therein. So you will not question each and everything in terms of its genuineness. Okay. Similarly, when it comes to the audit, so what did we discuss? We are talking about the financial statements. Yeah. If let's suppose machine is recorded in the financial statements. Yeah. Machine is recorded in the financial statements. So where will this machine appear in the financial statements? Can you tell me quickly? Over to you. Great. Medha says PP. It would be recorded under PP. Correct. Now, on this machine, if let's suppose depreciation is being charged, so what will you check? Whether the depreciation is provided over the useful life or not. That is what you will want to check. Yeah. So one, you will check machine is appearing under PP. Second, you will check machine is getting depreciated based on the useful life. Correct? Now, this is what is the scope of the auditor. If let's suppose for some reason physical condition of the machine is not good, let's suppose machine is not clean, its physical condition is bad, so is that the scope of the auditor? The answer is no. The answer is no. So auditor is not there for that particular area, for that particular activity. Yeah, that doesn't fall within the domain of the auditor. Clear on this? Yeah. So this domain also needs to be understood. This needs to be looked at. Yeah. So there is a limited perspective which the auditor is looking at, and limited to what? Financial information, financial statements, or you can say something which is going to have some financial impact. Something which is not going to have some financial impact will not be looked upon by the auditor. Okay. Clear on this? Makwana says, is asking, what do you mean by domain? Domain, you can say, is the area of expertise. For example, auditor is an expert in what? Audit means accounting standards, auditing standards. So that is what you will call as the domain. If let's suppose auditor were asked to check whether the machine is functioning in an appropriate manner or not. So is the auditor expected to be a technical expert on that? No. No. Okay. So auditor is not the technical expert who can go and check whether this machine is running in an appropriate manner. So that is what you say is not within the domain of the auditor. Clear on this? Clear on this? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Vipul is asking, but sir, existence of asset and ownership of asset is in the scope of auditor? Yes. For which auditor will go and check that physically? For which auditor will go and check its invoice? Yeah. Ownership documents? Yeah. But when that is being checked physically, if its physical condition is not good, so will that be a concern to the auditor? Tell me. Tell me, Vipul. Do you think that will be a concern to the auditor? If you go, let's suppose if you go physically verify a machine, you find it's there. Yeah, but its physical condition is not good. So will that be a concern to you? The answer is no. Answer is no. Why? Because depending on its condition, it is being depreciated by the management. So that is what you go and look at. Clear? Clear? Vipul, clear on this now? Yes, quickly. Vipul is asking, sir, but will the auditor report on the condition? No, that is not within the scope of the audit. Please try to understand that anything which is going to have a financial impact, only that is something which is within the scope of the auditor. If the physical condition is bad, how is it going to have any financial impact? Can you tell me? Priyanka says, sir, if the management doesn't provide the ownership details, then what is it that the auditor will do? Auditor will have to ask that information. Okay. Otherwise, auditor will not be able to report in an appropriate manner. So auditor is required to provide the report or not? Yeah. So if the auditor will not get something to check, will the auditor get the comfort? Tell me, will the auditor get the comfort? Tell me, what do you think? Will he get the comfort that the financial statements are free from material misstatement? Will he be able to express the opinion accordingly? The answer is no. So therefore, he will have to report about it. Yeah. So anything which the auditor believes will could have a financial impact will be reported there. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So let's look at this example now. And you need to answer this. Huh? Okay. Excuse me. Lalji Bhai has purchased shares of a company listed on NSE. Audited financial statements of the company provide picture of healthy financial performance, having robust turnover, low debt, and good profits. On above basis, he is absolutely satisfied that the money invested by him is safe and there is no chance of losing his money. Do the audited results and the audit reports of companies provide such assurance to investors like Lalji Bhai? Is the thinking of Lalji Bhai correct? Over to you. What do you think? Tell me. What do you think? Over to you. In this case, what is your opinion? Yes. Okay, so Vipul says Lalji Bhai is correct. Priyanka says Lalji Bhai is not correct. What about others? Maryada says no, he is not correct. Mohammed says he is correct. So can you also give me the rationale? So if you say he's correct, so why is correct? If he is not correct, why is he not correct? Over to you quickly. Kavita says absolute satisfaction is not given, but we are not talking about absolute satisfaction anyways. Rishabh says it depends on the market as well. Yeah, that's correct. But currently, on the basis of the limited facts which are available, you need to answer this. Yeah, tell me. Meda says because if the audited financial statement show the profits, then it is actual profits made and not the hype. Okay. Vipul says there's no reason for doubting this company. Ayushi says, sorry, I've been getting a lot of responses. Very good. So Rajveer says because it is meant that audited financial statements is correct. All right. What about this? Rihanna says no, the auditor can only make opinion about the financial statements for reasonable assurance, not regarding how the share prices will be. Very good. Okay, then Tribankar is saying, sir, Lalji Bhai may not be completely correct, but the future is uncertain despite the fact that statements are audited. Then I think Harsh has the same view. then I think Radhika is saying that Laljibai is correct, because the financial statements are audited, they provide the picture about the company. So now let's try to understand. An audit does not provide assurance to the investor in shares regarding safety of their money. Share prices of securities are affected by a lot of factors. It's not only the financial performance, there are various other factors which will have an impact on the share prices. Yes or no? Yeah. An audit only provides reasonable assurance. Now, this you should not forget. And that too about financial statements. Okay. So, therefore, to say in this case that his money is absolutely safe, there's no chance of losing his money, will that be appropriate? The answer is no. Why? Because his investment is driven by the prices, which could be fluctuating, and which could be fluctuating because a lot of other factors are also involved. Clear? Because a lot of other factors are also involved therein. Yeah. So that's why his thinking is not correct. Yeah. Now please understand, this is how the questions will also be asked in the exam. And that is how you will also be expected to answer. Okay. So you need to be very, very clear in terms of what you have been writing. And it's good that you have attempted to provide the reasoning. Yeah. So every time you provide an answer, you need to, first of all, give the opinion, means whether you agree with that or not. And again, the rationale as to why it's not done, why it's done. Clear? Good? Yeah? Okay, so I think we can look at one more example. Huh? Yeah, let's look at this one. Then we'll take a break. Yeah? Good Deeds Limited is engaged in the business of recycling of waste from dumping grounds of municipal corporation of Indore to usable manure. It is in this way also helping to make the city clean. During the course of audit by Zoha and Zoha, it is observed by the auditors that the company has received a notice from Central Bank of National Green Tribunal for not following certain environmental regulations involving imposition of heavy monetary penalty on the company. The company is yet to reply to the notice. The auditors point out that the same is not stated in the notes to accounts in the financial statements. The company points out that the auditors are going beyond their scope in their work. Tell me, does such a matter fall within the scope of audit? Over to you. Tell me, does such a matter fall within the scope of audit? And give me the rationale. Huh? If you say yes, no, why? Tell me. Okay, so Tribankar says no. Audit deals with the financial statements. Samarth says yes, it will fall. Why? Because this could impact the financial statements of the company. Rishabh says everything matters because penalty could be there, which could be a financial liability. Very good. Yeah. So Rishabh says this may have an impact on the profits. Hemlata says yes, there could be a monetary penalty which could be involved. I think Likita is saying yes, it can have a significant impact. Now, as far as this sort of situation is concerned, okay. Now, disclosure about this in the financial statements is important. So we are not saying that this can have some impact necessarily. That needs to be analyzed. Its outcome needs to be analyzed by the management. So they need to evaluate as to what is going to be the outcome. Yes or no? But of course, to completely ignore that, to completely disregard that may not be right. Yeah. So that's why its proper disclosure in the financial statements is required, and something which has to be there in the financial statements will fall within the scope of audit or not. Yeah. So the moment we say it has to be there in the financial statements, so will it fall within the scope of audit? Yes or no? Yeah. So let's suppose in the exam you get confused. Yeah. Let's suppose you don't have the answer to this question. So what should you do? Please remember, every time you get stuck, what is it that the auditor is required to do? To check something has been done in an appropriate manner or the way it is required to be done or not. Now tell me, if let's suppose you were the accountant of this company, will you include this information in the financial statements in the disclosures or not? Excuse me. Tell me. Will you include this information in the financial statements or not? Tell me. Sumit says yes. Excuse me. I think everyone says yes. Ayushi, Tanu, yeah, Maryada, Sovik, they are saying yes. Abhishek says yes. So the moment you say yes, what does it mean? Its audit has to be done. Its audit has to be done. So if the audit of financial statements will be done, so anything which will be there in the financial statements, will that be within the scope of auditor or not? Tell me. Tell me. Yeah. So some of you who may have a doubt, but sir, still we don't agree it should be within the scope of auditor. Please remember, every time this is how you can think about. Every time this is how you can analyze something. Okay. Clear on this? Yeah. Everyone clear? Any questions? Any doubts so far? Then I think we can take a break. Short break, huh? Yes, over to you. Any questions, any doubts that you may have, please let me know, and then we'll take a break. No? All right. So I think you're clear. Yeah. Everyone clear? All right. Great. Ayush says, sir, what happens when someone is using the audit in the wrong way? So that is unethical. Auditor is also subject to regulations. Yeah, because auditor is also driven by the ethics. That is again something you will cover in your subsequent sessions. Huh? So he will be subject to, the penalties, the consequences for the same. Okay. Tribankar is asking, sir, major financial impacts are analyzed, but are see minor impacts? It doesn't mean auditor will leave that. It's that if that is missed out, that's not a problem. That's not a big deal. So auditor will not go with an intent to leave anything which is minor. So something which will come to his notice, he will always look at it. Sumit is saying, I have not understood the question too. See, the question talks about the requirement as around this matter, whether this matter, okay, so there's this problem which could be there in the company, which could have a financial impact, whether that should be included in the financial statements or not. Okay, yeah, so that's the matter. And the moment you say it should be included in the financial statements, so should that be covered by the auditor or not? Clear? Yeah. Uh, Uday Shankar is talking about objective of audit. See, objective of audit is to ensure that once the financial statements have been audited, okay, once the financial statements have been audited, they should be free from any significant error. They should be free from significant error. So that is the objective of audit. Now, for achieving this objective, auditor will not check everything. Auditor will check on a sample basis. Let's suppose out of 1,000 transactions, he'll pick up 50 in sales. Out of 100 transactions of a particular expense, he'll pick up 5. So that is the approach which is followed. Okay, so this is something which he'll do. Yeah, clear? Yeah, solution. Okay, so Archana, I think you want to look at the solution. Yes. So solution is there in the screen. Anyways, you can always access the study material. Huh? Okay. So this is picked up from the study material only. So you can always go check that in the study material. Fine. Yeah. So this is the solution. Clear? Everyone clear now? Yeah. So let's take a small break. I think 5 to 10 minutes should be good enough. Yeah. All right. So Ashok, we can take a small break. Huh? Break. continue with our discussion. All right, so let's look at one more example. A huge fire broke out in Noida plant of KT Limited. Plant assets comprising building, machinery, inventories were insured from the branch of a public sector insurance company. Apart from an insurance surveyor who was deputed for assessing the loss, Regional Office of Insurance PSU also appointed a chartered accountant for verification of books of accounts, financial records. Okay, so you can say a chartered accountant has been engaged by the regional office of the insurance company, and he will also be looking at the circumstances surrounding the loss. So this chartered accountant who has been appointed, what will he do? Verification of books, financial records, plus circumstances surrounding the loss. After this CA has been requested. So what is the request? To submit an early report. Means he is also required to produce a report. So he'll do this verification, he'll perform his procedures and submit the report. In this case, what do you think? Would the report by this chartered accountant, should you consider this to be an audit report? Should you consider this to be an activity or something which is in the nature of audit, wherein he will be providing the audit report? Tell me, over to you. What do you think? Yes. So Silesh says no, it's not an audit report. Maryada says examine the books of accounts. Okay. Kunal says, oh, so no. So Kunal, of course, we'll talk about it towards the end. Please. Priyanka is saying no, it's not an audit report. It's a verification. It's in the nature of investigation, which possesses the specific checking. Archana says yes, as the verification of financial statements is included. Ayushi says not in the nature of audit report. Kavita is saying not independent. Ariana says no, he only verifies the books, but also he is not only verifying the books, but also the circumstances of the loss. Okay, so some of the thought process that you have given. Okay, Durganand saying not an audit report. Ayushi says not an audit report. Manivanan says it's a specific verification report. Okay, very good. Harshman says yes, because the financial statements may contain insurance claims. Okay, Aryan says yes, it's a kind of reporting. Okay, Bipin says fire is outside the purview of audit. Checking of accounts related to circumstances. So fire is outside the scope of audit. All right, so let's try to look at it. Now, if you will understand the nature of this work, this is not only about the verification of books of accounts, or you can say the financial records, something that we have been discussing so far. Yes or no? So whenever we are using this term audit, this has been in the context of what? Audit of financial statements, wherein we discussed that auditor is looking at the financial impact or the financial records. Okay. Now, if let's suppose a chartered accountant, or you can say a sort of consultant or a service provider has been hired, and what is the role of that service provider? That also includes to look at the circumstances surrounding the loss. Can we say it's a kind of financial audit? Can we say that? The answer is no. Why? Because what is really the objective in this case? Objective is to what? Find out as to why the fire has occurred. Okay. To find out the genuineness of the loss. Yes or no? Yes or no? Why? Because if you look at the insurance company, they want to protect their interest. And how is their interest protected? Yeah, by paying the lower amount as insurance claim, or by not paying the insurance claim, or you can say by paying the insurance claim only when it is genuine. Yes or no? Only when it is genuine. Yeah. So therefore, in this case, it becomes important to understand that the scope is too wide. It's not something which we generally look at. Yes or no? Scope is too wide. Yeah. It is basically flowing down at a level which is beyond the financial performance, financial records. Yeah. Which is extending towards, you can say, a kind of investigation also. Yeah, and that's why the report which this chartered accountant will provide, you should not be considering that to be an audit report. Okay, yeah, clear? Everyone clear on this? Any questions? Any doubts? Yeah, everyone clear? Anubhav seems to be okay with this. Clear, great. Everyone clear? Yeah, Rishabh clear? Good. Ashita is clear. Tanu is also clear. All right, so let's move further. Huh? Now what we will try to do is we'll try to look at limitations of audit. And I think this will also give you some more perspective as to what is really not there within the scope of audit. So there are few things which we have already looked at. Okay, in terms of what an auditor is not doing, but in terms of what an auditor is doing, what are the limitations? What are the inherent limitations? Okay, now there's one thing that we have already discussed, that this entire process of audit, if you look at its objective is what? Its objective is to move to a reasonable assurance. Yeah. So one limitation of the audit flows from this objective. And what is that? Audit does not provide absolute assurance. Yeah, so absolute assurance is not provided by the audit. And we have already talked about it. That when it comes to the absolute assurance, this can only be achieved when each and everything is checked. Yeah. So therefore, one limitation which automatically flows happens to be through the requirement, through the strategy, through the objective of the audit. And what is that? Absolute assurance is missing. Correct? Yeah. Now, let's try to understand this entire sort of, limitation with the help of a couple of examples. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just try to look at some examples with the help of which we'll try to discuss this as to how does it impact and whether this can really be captured or not. Okay, hopefully through that you should be getting some more clarity around the audit approach. So say we are talking about a company A Limited. Okay, and in this company A Limited, we have discussed there are lots of transactions, thousands of transactions. It's a large company. It's a large company. Okay, now because it's a large company, therefore, what will happen? Say, for example, this is the overall population of transactions. Yes or no? Now, this is very, very important. Huh? This is very, very important. So, wherever you have any questions, just please keep asking that. Let's suppose these are the transactions during the year. Okay. Now, as an auditor, what did we discuss? will go check on a random basis, on a sample basis. Let's suppose this part is checked, 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 this part is checked. Okay, so this is the approach which the auditor will follow. Tell me, what do you think? Yes or no? Yes or no? This is the approach which the auditor will follow. Yeah. Now, why does the auditor follow this approach? Because we understand that the financial reporting has got some constraints. Yeah. There could be volumes depending on the size. Yeah. There are a lot of areas over which judgment may have to be involved. But all of that is flown down within the financial statements in the form of this financial statement set. Correct. Now, in this case, the population which is not tested by the auditor, is there a possibility that some of the errors could be there? Let's suppose some errors are hidden over here. Yes or no? Yes or no? Tell me, is that a possibility? So this sample which has not been checked by the auditor, maybe within that particular population, some errors were there. Yes or no? Yes or no? Now, can the auditor really help that? The answer is yes. How can the auditor help that process? You can say auditor can take an approach. What is the approach? Auditor can consider the approach wherein the auditor can pick up the samples by covering all of the areas. Of course, that is done. But within the areas also, some of the errors could be there. So you can say sample could be taken which is representative of the population. Of course, that is taken. Even after that, errors could be there. Even after that, errors could be there. So now, how do you go and manage that? How do you go and help that? Do you think it will be possible for the auditor to go and help that? The answer is no. Answer is no. Yeah. So one, we are saying that because of the audit procedures which are prescribed by the auditing standards, because of the limitation of the audit, which is not an investigation, so that's why this limitation will always remain. Plus, there is another challenge. There is another challenge. Let's try to understand that. At times, what may happen is, for a company, internal controls may not be very strong. See, there are two types of companies which are possible. A company which may have its systems, processes, okay, everything which is done in an appropriate manner. Internally, they control that very strongly. Yeah. But some of the companies could be there who do not have strong controls. Yeah. Their activities may not be very streamlined. Yes or no? Yeah. Is that a possibility or not? Yeah. So will this have an impact on the audit, on the outcome of the audit? What do you think? Will this have some impact on the outcome of the audit? The answer is, of course, yes. Why? Because the company wherein the controls are weak, where the systems are missing, processes are not there, chances of errors will increase. Yeah. Therein, the auditor can also increase the testing. But can the testing be 100%? The answer is again no. The answer is again no. Further, let's also try to understand the limitation. If let's suppose there is a company today which wants to get the financial statements audited, let's suppose 31st March 2025 financial year will end. Okay, now for this entire set to be checked, generally the time frame which is available to the auditor is limited only. Yes or no? Yes or no? Why? Because a lot of activities are required to be done. AGM has to be conducted. Before AGM, preparation of AGM will be required. Before preparation of AGM, board meeting will have to take place. And before board meeting, preparation of board meeting will have to take place. And before board meeting, Financial statements will have to be prepared, audit work will have to be completed. Yes or no? So this time limited is too, so this time available is too short. So can the auditor have the luxury of time? Can the auditor have luxury of time? What do you think? Can the auditor can just go and sit on the financial statement, sit on the information and keep doing the work for months and months? Do you think it's possible? The answer is no. The answer is no. So when the volume is too high, the work is so much, but the time is limited. So that is also a kind of limitation which is imposed on the auditor or not? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yeah. Similarly, if you look at the company is exposed to external environment, economic environment, each and every entity. Yes or no? So some of the things could impact them in terms of their financial performance, in terms of their financial reporting. Yeah. So all of these factors, will that have some outcome on the audit process or not? Of course, yes. All of these things will definitely have some bearing on the audit process for sure. Can you deny that fact? The answer is no. The answer is no. Yes or no? Now the question arises, and you may be thinking, but sir, if there are so many limitations, if so many problems are there, so what is the use of audit? Why is this audit conducted at all? If you believe it's full of limitations, okay, in fact, some of you have asked me that if there are so many limitations, if there are so many problems, how do you give the comfort as an auditor? So can you just help me understand? Anyone having any thought? So how will the auditor achieve this objective? How will the auditor go to this to say that something which has been done is being done in an appropriate manner, over which he has a reasonable assurance, over which he can say that at least the errors are, sorry, at least the financial statements are free from material misstatement. Tell me, how will the auditor ensure that? Very good. Anubhav says by following the auditing standards. So, what does it mean? And how does this process work? See, by following the auditing standards, auditor will get a complete flow of guidance, the way audit is required to be done, through which some of these limitations are taken care of. So, we are not saying 100% testing will be performed, but whatever is being tested is done in an appropriate manner. Whatever sample is selected in a way that it is representative of the entire population. Okay, it is taking care of the entire population. Yeah. Auditor will have his skill set, auditor will have his knowledge, he will use his experience, which he would have gained on so many clients, which is not only limited to this company, which could be there on so many other entities. Yeah. So all of these is being used by the auditor. His knowledge, his professional knowledge, his technical knowledge, or you can say his experience. Yeah, his competence has to be looked at. Yeah. So all of these factors will help the auditor in achieving this objective. Yeah. So despite being limitations which are there in the audit process, can we say that the audit process is of no use? No, that will be completely inappropriate. Yeah. Still, the audit is something which will give a huge level of assurance, or you can say a high level of assurance. And that is what you mean by reasonable assurance also. Clear? Clear on this, everyone? Any questions, any doubts if you have, please let me know. Tell me, any questions, any doubts? Any questions, any doubts? Quickly. Any questions, any doubts? Kiran is asking whether my query is showing or not. So what's the query, Kiran? So this is something I've just looked at. So what's the query? Maryada is saying repeat once again lost topic, sir. Lost topic means I couldn't understand. Priyanka is saying how the auditor expresses the opinion. See, the auditor expresses the opinion by giving a report. So again, this is something which you are going to discuss in more detail as you move further. So auditor will give in writing. So there will be a report of the auditor wherein he will express his opinion. So he'll write his opinion, what all he has checked, okay, whether the outcome was okay or not. Yeah. Plus what all responsibilities he was having, what all responsibilities management was having, and then he'll sign the audit report. Yeah. Okay. Then I think Nagratna is asking about the notes. Yes, of course. So this presentation that you have, you will get this. So this should work as notes for you. Okay. Kiran is asking my answers, my queries are going to tech shock. So you should, uh, write it appropriately, to all. Rihanna is asking, sir, how can we differentiate specific audit from investigation? That will again be depending on the scope. Okay, in the scoping, it will be clarified. So that's how you look at the scope always. Okay, yeah. All right. So now quickly onto this. Though I think we are quite clear on this, but still, let's try to look at some of the benefits of the audit. So I think you would have got the clarity. But if let's suppose audit is performed, so what are going to be the benefits? One, the financial information is considered to be of high quality. Yeah. So the level of confidence will increase. And this confidence will increase for whom? For the auditor? No. For the management, for the stakeholders, for everyone who is going to use the financial statements once they are audited. Okay. Now, as shareholders, what do they need? What do they need? They need somebody who is independent to the company, who can perform this checking and provide this. So once they perform this checking, they can always comment on that, whether the information is qualitative, is reliable or not. So again, you can say that level of comfort which the investor, so let's suppose if you invest in the shares of a company, so what will you want? You will want to get some confidence or not? Yes or no? So how will you get the confidence? So when you look at the financial statements at the year end, if you look at the profits of the company, if you look at the sales of the company, okay, so it's genuineness to a great extent. You will not be worried. So you'll be thinking, yes, everything is okay. Why? Because there's a third party who is independent. Now please remember, who is independent, who has checked this, and who has found this to be free from significant errors. Yeah, so thereby, what has happened? Interest of the shareholders are safeguarded. Yes or no? Yeah. So their interest is protected. This that's how. Yeah. Plus, within the company, okay, and I'm sure you can just relate to this. So let's suppose you are writing your answers. So let's suppose examination is going on. Okay. Now, and you are writing your answers. If let's suppose invigilator is not there in the examination hall, so what will happen? Can you tell me? If let's suppose invigilator is missing, so what will happen? Just think about it. So you're writing the answers. Yeah. So Anubhav is saying there could be a situation wherein cheating is going on. Yes or no? Yes or no? Yeah. So what is the role of the invigilator? It's a check. It's a check. Yes or no? It's a check. Yeah. So that is how that situation is protected. Yeah. Now same goes with the company also. Within the company, if you talk about a small company which can have a size of, let's say they've got only 40 to 50 employees, or you can say there is a company which has got 5 to 6,000 employees. Now, who is going to have a check on them in terms of their working, in terms of their activities? So if they understand that later on whatever they do is going to be looked at by someone, there's someone who can check their data, their information, their details. So it's not that everybody will always check, but they have a clarity, or they think that somebody may come and check our informations, our data are working. So don't you think this will distract them, or this will, sort of, this will be a deterrent for them not to get into some intentional mistakes? Yes or no? Yeah. Yes or no? So their diligence to certain extent will also increase because of this. What do you think? Yeah. Will it work or not this way? Tell me. Tell me. Yes or no? Yeah. So this is again very, very important. Yeah. So it's a moral check on the employees. Further, these financial statements are required to be reported at various places. It goes to income tax, it goes to various other regulators, ROC, who require this information. Yeah, for various purposes. For example, income tax requires this for what? Tax liabilities. Yes or no? Bankers may require them. Lenders may require them. Why? Because they want to assess the financial position of the company. They want to assess whether everything is all right within the company or not. Yeah. So any errors, frauds are detected if the audit will take place, or at least the expectation is that significant errors are detected. Correct? Yeah. Within the organization, as we talked about, because it's a check on it's a moral check on the employees. So in a way, a lot of activities of the company, as regards their controls, as regards their processes, as regards their activities, they are also in a way under the check of the auditor or not? Yes or no? That is under the check of the auditor or not? Yeah. So you can say, in a way, all of these are nothing but the benefits of the audit. Correct? Yeah. So these are the benefits of the audit. Everyone clear on this? Clear on this? Any questions? Any doubts so far? Yeah. Clear? All right. So now what we will do is we'll also look at this requirement of audit. I think something which you have also been keen to understand. See, as far as audit is concerned, when it comes to a company, okay, for a company, whether it has got profit or loss, whether it has got any sales or not, it is always mandatory for a financial year. Understood? Yeah. For a company, irrespective of its profit or loss, irrespective of whether the company is making any sales or not, and irrespective of whether a company has any transaction during the year or not. Every year audit is mandatory. And what year is that? Financial year. Okay. Now, when it comes to non-corporates, what do you mean by non-corporates? For example, partnership firm. Okay. Can you give me some examples of non-corporates? Over to you. Anubhav says HUF, very good. Mohammed says proprietor, sole proprietorship. Anubhav says AOI, sorry, AOP. Yes, very good. Yeah. So Kiran is saying HUF. Yes, of course. Individual. Yeah. Partnership firm. Now, these are all examples of what? Non-corporates. Now, because the non-corporates are not driven by the Companies Act. Okay. So Companies Act mandates audit on corporates, because the non-corporates are not governed by Companies Act. So that's why you'll have to get into their regulation every time. For example, Income Tax Act may mandate audit for certain non-corporates, depending on certain limits, of course. Yeah. So to say for non-corporates audit is mandatory, the answer is no. But you'll have to go and check the applicability of audit in respect of those non-corporates, depending on the regulation they are subject to. Income tax, for example, as we discussed, may mandate audit. Okay, that is what is also called as tax audit. Okay, that is what is also called as tax audit. Okay, yeah. So to summarize, we can say that audit is mandatory in respect of companies. For non-corporates, it's not mandatory. It will be driven by the regulations to which those non-corporates are subject to. Okay. Now, moving further. If let's suppose audit is mandatory or non-mandatory, means whenever the audit becomes applicable. So who will appoint the auditor? Who will appoint the auditor? Now, please remember, an auditor is appointed by whom? An auditor, in case of a company, is appointed by the members, shareholders. Okay. In case of a company, who will appoint the auditor? Members or the shareholders. Yeah. Why? Because they are the owners of the company. So initially, board of directors will appoint, but that needs to be approved by the shareholders, or you can say the members. But when it comes to the government companies, auditor is appointed by a body which is called as CAG. What is CAG? Comptroller and Auditor General of India. You can say it's a government authority. It's a government authority who appoints the auditor for government companies. Clear? Yeah. Now, when it comes to a non-corporate, now let's suppose if you talk about a non, say for example, if there is a proprietor. In case of a proprietor, who is there in the entity? Proprietor only. Proprietor is the owner of the proprietorship. Yes or no? So who will appoint the auditor? Proprietor only. So in case it's a partnership firm, so who are the owners of the partnership firm? Can you tell me? Who are the owners of the partnership firm? Over to you. Great. Kiran says partners. Rashmi says partners. What about others? Partners? Yeah. So who will appoint the auditor? Partners will appoint the auditors. Okay. So that's why when it comes to a non-corporate, it's generally the owners who will do the appointment. Clear? It's generally the owners who will do the appointment. For example, in case of a proprietorship, sole proprietor will do that. In case of partnership firm, partners will do the appointment. So that's how it will have to be looked at. Okay. Yeah. Now, moving further. To whom this report? So we talked about an audit report. Of course, you will go look at the audit report as to what is the nature or what is the structure. Let's suppose this report is given. Okay, we discussed that this report is required to be given. So one, we talked about this report has to be in writing. So every time the auditor will give the report, it has to be in writing. So this will be signed by the auditor. Yeah, properly written, signed by the auditor. But to whom is this report submitted? So when it comes to the company, if let's suppose audit is required as per the provisions of Companies Act, something which is also called as statutory audit. So to whom is this report given? This report is given to those persons who have appointed the auditor. And who are those? Can you tell me? Who appoints the auditor in case of a company? Yes, tell me quickly. Kiran, Padmashri, shareholders. That means the members. Very good. So Tanu says shareholders. Yes. So in case of a company, it will go to the members. Okay. But let's suppose some specific scope is given in case of a company. Okay. Yeah. So over and above statutory audit, some specific scope is given to the auditor. And the scope is covered by whom? Company only. So that means it's given by the board of directors. It's given by the board of directors. So in that case, where should this report go? In that case, this report will go to board of directors. Okay. So if there is a special purpose, or you can say there is some specific audit, there is some specific working which has been assigned. Clear? Now you tell me, in case of a partnership firm, let's suppose it's an audit of partnership firm. Where should that report be given by the auditor? To whom should that report be given? Tell me. Tell me. So let's suppose there's a partnership firm. Let's suppose there's a partnership firm in which there are four partners. So tell me, will this report go to all the partners or only one partner or three out of the four partners, majority of the partners? What do you think? Very good. Kiran says all the partners. Nagraj says all the partners. Aman says all the partners. Yeah, very good. Similarly, if it's a proprietorship, where do you think the audit report will go? Tell me. In case of a proprietorship firm, where should the report go? To the proprietor. Yeah, because that's the owner. Owner has appointed the auditor, so this report will go to the owner of the company, or sorry, owner of this setup, which is what? Proprietorship firm. Clear? Everyone clear? Yeah. So I think we can move on to your questions, doubts. Yes. Any questions, any doubts that you may have? Over to you. And I think we are also now moving on to this last 15-minute slot, wherein you can also speak up. Ashok, can they speak up and ask the questions? Okay, so if you want to speak up, you can also speak up. Okay, so Radhika is asking, sir, exams के लिए कैसे prepare करें? So I think we have Karuna ma'am who will be able to help you better in terms of moving on to this approach for examination. So what I believe is that for examination, see that few ways you need to look into it. First of all, audit you should not consider it's a theory subject. Okay. And I'm sure during the course of our discussion today, you would have found that there are a lot of areas which are quite practical, which are not theoretical. Yeah. So every time, whenever you take up this subject, you should believe it's a practical subject and try to apply each of these concepts in a practical manner. Okay. Maybe with the help of some examples, maybe with the help of some situations through which you should be getting some more clarity around the concept. So once you are clear on the concept, that I believe is the best preparation for the examination. And that is what I believe is also the expectation of the examiner these days. But of course, Karuna ma'am will be able to guide you better on this.
Good evening, sir.
Yes.
So my question is this: if auditor knows that there is a mistake in a financial statement and he ignores the mistake, and so what action will be taken by ICAI and MCA, and what punishment will be given to auditor?
See, there are two types of errors which are possible in this case. As we discussed, auditor is required to look at significant errors. Okay. So if there are some small errors, which auditor believes those errors are there, but he has skipped that, whether intentionally or unintentionally. So in that case, it's not a problem. Why? Because auditor is supposed to ignore that. For example, let's suppose you are auditing Airtel. Yeah. You understand it's a large company, huge volume is there, size is too high. And as an auditor, you come across, say, 20 errors of rupees 1 lakh each. So what will be the total of the error? Tell me. What is going to be the total of the error? Tell me. 20 lakhs?
Yes,
Correct?
20.
Now, as an auditor, what will you think? What will you go and check? Whether this 20 lakh is material, significant? The answer is no, considering the size of the company. So you'll say it's okay. Of course, you will go ask the management that rectify this. Management says, no, we don't have too much time. We want to ignore this. Yeah. So please pass this. So auditor will pass this. So in his working papers, so auditor prepares some working papers, which you'll get to understand in your subsequent sessions. He'll write it. There are few errors, but he has ignored. Okay. Which is completely okay. But let's suppose there's an error of rupees, say 50 crore. Okay. Error totaling to 50 crore. And let's suppose that is quite significant considering the size of the company. And the auditor has skipped that. So that is something you'll say is a fraudulent reporting. for which the consequences are going to be quite serious, not only on the part of the auditor, but also on the part of the company, because that is a kind of fraudulent activity which is thoughtfully done. Okay, which is going to be penalized by ICAI. And again, depending on the applicability, it's not only ICAI, NAFRA is also there. Yeah, so that's how it works. And that
Thank
needs
you,
to
sir.
be evaluated on a case to case basis.
Thank you, sir.
Sure. Then I can see this query. Yes.
Sir, could you please external audit engagement explain?
Sorry?
Explain again external audit engagement, sir.
See, external audit we have not discussed today, but let me just give you quickly the clarity around the external audit. External audit, this term is used in the context of audit performed by a third party external to the company. For example, we talked about audit of financial statements. Yes or no? Which is also very commonly called as statutory audit, which will always be performed by an independent person, correct? And when you say independent person, that has to be a person outside the organization. So in such a case, you will call that particular audit as external audit. Now, external audit is not limited to statutory audit. Say, for example, income tax requires any audit to be performed, which is very commonly called as tax audit. So that can also be considered to be an external audit. External audit simply means auditor is external to the organization. He is not a part of the organization. Of course, he has to be independent, but he has to be external, not a part of the organization. So that's how you define the external auditor.
Okay. Sir, I'm audible?
Yes.
What is statutory audit?
See, statutory audit means audit which is mandated by the statute. Now, what is the statute? Companies Act. So in case of a company, we discussed that audit is mandatory. Yeah. So where does this requirement come from? Companies Act. So Companies Act says that every company will have to get its financial statement audited on an annual basis. And this audit of financial statements, which is mandated by the Companies Act, is what you call as statutory audit, something that we have discussed today.
And it is different from what is normal audit, like proprietorship. We are if we are auditing a proprietorship. And
yes, yes, it's different, at least in terms of the legal requirement. So let's try to understand this. See, if you talk about a proprietorship is not a company. So that's why you will not say it's mandated by the Companies Act. So it means that if you are auditing the, let's suppose, financial statement of a proprietorship firm, it has to come from some statute, some law or regulation. Yeah. Let's suppose you are saying that income tax mandates that. So income tax will have its own requirements, which may not necessarily align with what is there in the Companies Act. So it may vary. So that's why it's not necessarily same always. But of course, if it comes to the audit of the financial statements, whether that is for proprietorship firm or for the companies, then you'll have to make the usage of auditing standards in both the cases, in which case the approach will largely be similar. Though it's driven by two different regulations, but approach will largely be similar.
Thank you, sir.
Sure. Then I can see a lot of queries. I'll just read this. Sumit is asking, it means auditor mentioned in the audit report if he finds, see, first of all, what is the duty of the auditor? Whenever there's an error, if that is significant, go talk to the management. Ask them to rectify. In most of the cases, management will do that. In some of the cases, management may not want to do that. Why? Because there could always be a difference of opinion. Auditor may say this is wrong, management may say no, this is right. Yeah. If that is the situation, that needs to be discussed. And eventually a call needs to be taken. Auditor needs to come to a conclusion. So what is his final view? Or there could be a situation wherein the management intentionally doesn't want to rectify. There again, auditor needs to take a call. So if the auditor believes the error is significant, then of course he'll like to report this. But again, reporting implications will have to be looked at, which you are going to cover later on. Kiran is asking, sir, why only auditor can give the opinion? Because auditor is the one who has been assigned this responsibility to audit, and then to provide audit report. And in the audit report, there is this section to write the opinion. Now, what is this opinion? Or in terms of opinion, you can just very simply say opinion means to comment that whatever I have done was okay. Financial statements I have looked at are okay. There are no significant errors. So that is what you, in very simple terms, can say is the meaning of opinion. Yes.
You just said what is an external audit. Actually, audit is always conducted by a person who is outside the organization, right? So why do we make any distinguishment as to this is an external audit or that is an internal audit? Because the audit is always conducted by someone who is outside the organization, who is not related to the organization. Then why do we particularly classify external audit to be the one in which it is conducted by the audit is conducted by the one who is external to the organization?
See, there's a concept called as internal audit. We have not, which is not around the financial statements, wherein the scoping happens to be different, wherein the role of the auditor is to that role involves checking of processes of the management, checking their internal controls, checking their activities. Okay, so which is not around the financial statements, but around different areas. But that is also an audit. And this internal audit, or you can say this kind of audit, can be performed by two types of persons. One who is external to the company, in which case it is called as external internal audit. And there can always be an in-house department within the company. So a lot of large companies that you look at, they have in-house department, which is kept independent from the management. Okay. So that all of these procedures that they perform, they are free from any sort of bias influence. So in that context, this term internal audit or internal auditor is used. But as you rightly mentioned, when it comes to the financial statements, so for the financial statements, it will always be external audit. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Which type of questions are coming in the exam? Theory or MCQs?
So it's a mixture.
Mixture.
Yes.
What is the larger portion? Is it theory or MCQs?
I think Karna ma'am can comment on this in terms of the weightage. I'm not sure about it.
What you can you repeat your question once?
Which type of questions are coming in the exam? Theory or MCQs?
See, this is 100 marks paper. It is a mixture, 30 marks integrated case scenario based MCQs. Some of the independent MCQs are also there, but those are also situation based, right? For 70 marks, it's purely descriptive, but the paper is of 88 marks. You can see the paper on ICAI website. It's there on BS Knowledge Portal. And nowadays, MCQ paper is also out now. In fact, you can see the mock test paper also. That will give you idea how the paper will be.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Sure. Then I think Likita is asking, sir, what is the significance of internal audit since it? See, as I told you, it's a different concept altogether, which you need to understand in detail. But for the time being, you can understand that the moment audit comes into the picture, or you can say internal auditor is considered, he has to be independent, whether he is internal or external. Okay. So when you say it's in-house or internal to the company, that doesn't mean it will be biased. You are right. To a certain extent, this bias could creep in. So that's why some of the structures which are there in the organizations, which are created particularly for the internal audit, are such wherein they are kept independent from the other departments. So that's how this function works. Okay, so there's always an audit committee which is considered to be independent. So internal auditor will go report to the audit committee. Okay, so that independence is maintained. So that bias is tried to be removed. So that's how it works. Priyanka is asking, sir, internal auditor and external auditor will be the same person for auditing a partner company? No, they cannot be same. They have to be different always. Likita is asking, in what cases will a court audit for a statute. No, so court will not order for a statutory audit. Court can order for investigation, not for statutory audit. Statutory audit is something which comes from the statute, not from the court of law. Okay.
Sir, could you please explain once again, explain audit mandatory or voluntary?
Audit mandatory and voluntary. See, audit for the companies, when it comes to a corporate company, it's mandatory. Why? Because companies are governed by Companies Act. And Companies Act says each and every company, whether it is profitable or loss making, has got any turnover or not, has got any transaction during the year or not, has to get the audit performed. So for a company, it's always mandatory. Now, when it comes to non-corporates, for example, proprietor, partnership firm, so for all of them, the requirement will have to be looked at by the regulation through which they are governed. Generally, they all fall within the purview of income tax. And income tax mandates, depending on some turnover, some criteria is available, tax audit. Okay, that term is called as tax audit, which means a kind of audit of financial statements plus some other reporting requirements to the income tax department, depending on some criteria. So that's why we can say for non-corporates, it's not mandatory, but of course, you need to go and look at the relevant regulation, and accordingly you need to decide whether it is going to be applicable or not. But it's not like for each non-corporate it will be applicable. So that's the meaning of voluntary and mandatory and non-mandatory. And if an entity wants to get this audit done, let's suppose there's no regulation requires, but still maybe the owners want this audit to be performed, they can get it done. Okay. Then this query comes from Kavita. She's asking, there's an example, a case where an auditor takes a sample of transactions and checks and gives the report that it is true and fair, but in the other part of transactions, there is an error. Here, will the auditor be responsible? See, I would say that we have done a very, very limited discussion today. We have just started off, okay? So you have just, I would say, got an introduction of audit, not beyond that. First of all, to answer your question quickly, this is not how this audit works. And this audit function, again, has got a lot of procedures through which some of these things are taken care of. But even if there are some errors which get left out in the samples which are not tested, and if the auditor can prove that he was diligent in terms of selecting the samples, and the samples which didn't get selected, which were having errors, was not skipped by the auditor intentionally, but that was unintentional, that was part of the process, then there is absolutely no problem to the auditor. Okay, but if let's suppose there was some bias because of which those samples were not selected, then it will be a problem. Okay, but as you go through this entire audit, see, please understand that this audit, even though it's covered in chapters, it's a process in entirety. And once you get this complete understanding of the audit process, you will automatically get a clarity that such type of situations, okay, which of course I can understand is a sort of concern in your mind, goes off once the audit is performed. Tanu is asking, what's the meaning of independent? See, independent means when a person is free from any sort of influence, from any bias. For example, say you are auditing a company. In this company, say the CFO is your spouse, CFO is your father, CFO is your mother. Let's suppose you are a part of audit team. Okay, you understand that your father is the one who is responsible for financial reporting. Okay, now what will happen? When you go check the financial statements, you find there are a lot of errors. So definitely there will be some bias. Yes or no? Tell me. So will there be some bias or not? Tanu, you're there? Yeah, tell me. Let's suppose your relative is there, you are auditing the financial statements and you find errors. So there's a tendency, I'm not saying every time it will happen, you may want to ignore those errors. Yes or no? Yes or no? This is what you call as independence is missing. So one has to be free from any sort of bias, any sort of influence. Yeah, for which again there are a lot of situations which you are going to cover how this independence can be maintained. So every time there is an auditor, he has to be independent. Okay, so then I can see this query again from Rohini. She's asking external. See, external audit means audit performed by a third party. Means it should not be in-house. It should be a third party who is independent. Sumit is asking, can you please clear my doubt? Can a company, see, of course, a company can appoint 2 or more auditors. That is what you also call as joint audit. Yeah, that is permissible. And in some of the cases, it's also required. Yeah, so there's no restriction that only one auditor needs to be appointed. Company can appoint 2 auditors. So they will jointly work on this. The scope will then be divided. And this again is going to be a part of your discussion as you move forward. Yeah, in your subsequent sessions, we will discuss this concept of joint audit. But yes, this can be done. Okay. Meaning of behavioral science means you need to look at the people skill. Okay, you need to look at the people management. So that is what is expected out of the auditor. So that aspect, why? Because let's suppose if you go audit. Now audit is what? Audit is nothing but a project. For this project, what do you need? First of all, there will be a team which will be working on this project, kind of, which is called as audit team. So say in this team, there are 6 persons. So you need people management, behavioral skills you need to manage. Only then you will be able to work together. Plus, let's suppose you go to the client place. You need to talk to the accountant, you need to talk to the CFO, you need to deal with the board of directors. Yeah, so their sales team, marketing team, procurement team, you need to go talk to them, obtain the information. There could be queries, there could be doubts, and there could be a lot of debates. There could be fights sometimes. So all of these aspects need to be managed. So this is what you need to take care as an auditor as well. Any more questions? Anyone else?
सर मैम से पूछना था एग्जाम्स के लिए कैसे
हाँ जी।
तैयारी करें या क्या अप्रोच रखें फल के लिए।
श्योर।
हाँ, कौन बात कर रहा है? राधिका?
यस मैम।
Yeah, Radhika, right approach for audit exam is कि जैसे हमने आज से टॉपिक स्टार्ट किया, बेसिक ओवरव्यू ऑफ ऑडिटिंग वी हैव सीन। हमारे जो 11 चैप्टर्स है, राइट? तो आज हमने चैप्टर 1 स्टार्ट किया है और नेक्स्ट क्लास इज ऑन 28 फरवरी। तो जब आपको सर ने चैप्टर बताया, उसके साथ ही आप स्टडी से चैप्टर कीजिए, उसके MCQ केस सिनेरियो उसको प्रैक्टिस कीजिए, ठीक है? एंड वन मोर इम्पॉर्टेंट थिंग इज राइटिंग प्रैक्टिस। डू राइटिंग प्रैक्टिस एज मच एज यू कैन, ठीक है? राइटिंग प्रैक्टिस से यू विल बी एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड कि वेर यू आर लैकिंग, कहाँ क्या मिस हो रहा है। व्हेन यू विल ऑडिट योर आंसर, मतलब अपने लिखे आंसर को खुद से चेक करना है कि क्या हम सही आंसर, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल तो क्या हम क्वेश्चन की रिक्वायरमेंट को समझ पा रहे हैं, सेकेंडली जो रिक्वायर्ड आंसर है क्या वो हम लिख रहे हैं। आप उसको RTP के साथ में भी लिंक करके देख सकते हैं। RTP में भी क्वेश्चन होते हैं, नए क्वेश्चन आप देख सकते हैं कि आर यू एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड द रिक्वायरमेंट, और उसकी राइटिंग प्रैक्टिस करना है, राइट? सेम वे हमारा साइमल्टेनियसली जैसे जैसे चैप्टर प्रिपेयर हो रहा है, आप उसको साथ साथ रेडी करते जाइए, साथ साथ उसके आप नोट्स बनाइए। लाइक सर तो आपको अपने नोट्स शेयर कर रहे हैं, बट अगर आपने अपने आप अपने नोट्स बनाए, इफ यू आर प्रिपेयरिंग योर ओन नोट्स, definitely it will help you a lot, right? So you can take the help of Saransh book, study material, sir ke notes, all each thing you can take combine and you can practice. In case if you find any difficulty, you can be in touch with us. You must have downloaded the BOS mobile app, right? On that mobile app, you are having Ask Your Query feature. With the help of Ask Your Query feature, you can connect with us. Don't think it is a theoretical subject. So first, you need to understand that it is not a theoretical subject. It is the subject where you need to use your knowledge practically, and it is very, very important, right? So don't think it is theoretical, it's boring. You can make it as interesting as practical subject also, right? So take interest in this subject and regularly study this subject. You will definitely be able to fetch good marks.
Yes. Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Is it clear, Radhika? Anything else you want to ask?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Kunal, recorded video of live classes will be available. It's there on mobile app. It's there on YouTube also. But when you join the live session through Zoom link, right, you can ask your doubts. Immediately you'll get the answer also. So that is the actually one-to-one class like. So if there is no query, we can conclude it. Any of the query?
Oh, ma'am. Thank you.
No,
Okay.
ma'am.
Yeah. So at the last, I propose vote of thanks to Achal sir. He has
Thank you. Thank
nicely
you so much.
explained the topic and very interesting manner with practical situation he is linking, and you are trying to make all of you understand. And like when you are after completion of intermediate examination, when you are intermediate, then you will be going for practical training, right? You will be going for articleship. Then you can apply that knowledge. And the topic which we are studying now, it will also be helpful in your CA final as well. So please don't compromise in studies. Take interest and read as much as you can and practice. Learn the concepts. Okay. So that regular learning process will help you in final exam also. So with this, thank you to all the participants. Thank you to Achal sir for this
Thank you.
wonderful session, insightful session. And we'll be meeting next on 28th February for the same chapter. So till the time, whatever is being covered, you need to revise the same. And of course, additional part also you need to study in advance so that you can ask your doubts to sir. With this, thank you. Thank you very
Thanks.
much.
Thanks, sir. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Ma'am.
All right. Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Okay. Yeah.